I don't believe in collective guilt of any kind. I'm an individual. I'll take responsibility for what I do or what I've done. I don't like the term privilege. I think it's used way too much. I certainly understand why some struggling coal miner, when he hears some rich white kid talk about privilege, it's obnoxious.
But we do, you will acknowledge the fact that you and I have white privilege.
I will not. I will call it advantage. Have I had advantages for being white? I'm sure I have.
Well, that's semantics.
What's the difference between privilege and advantage to you?
Can I explain?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Advantage means like when I was starting out in the early 80s when we were comics.
Right.
Could there have been a moment where I was up against a black comic to get a job at the Chuckle Hut in Cleveland, and the comedy owner said, okay, let's go with the white guy,
right?
Because we'll probably do a little more ticket sales on Saturday night. I mean, this is 1980 after all.
Right.
That could have happened. Absolutely.
And that's not that would privilege?
Well, it's an advantage. It's not a privilege to be.
But that's the problem in today's society. A word, is the and even why we're getting canceled. It's perception over content. So the perception of privilege to you is different than the perception of advantage. The advantage is when you are a white guy and you are pulled over in the middle of the night, and
yes, it's an advantage.
And I have the privilege of just not having to worry about being, my friends who are...
Well, that's not true either.
What?
I mean, how many people do you think the police shoot a year?
I don't know.
See? So you're talking out of your ass.
Well, tell me.
1,000. They shoot about 1,000 people a year.
Okay. And?
How many of that are white people?
Tell me.
So again, we're having this discussion, but you're so sure of yourself, you don't even know the stats.
But why does that stat
because you're talking about how much you have to worry about.
I have to worry. My friends who are black, who are married and raising kids.
Right.
Here's what my personal experience. My personal experience when I took my kids out and they got their driver's license.
Right.
I was worried about them driving safely, and those are the discussions I had.
Absolutely.
Don't speed and don't take somebody. My black friends have to have an added discussion.
I agree.
That I've never had with my kids. If you get pulled over by the cop, make sure that your hands are there. Right. Don't reach for anything.
Okay.
So isn't that privilege?
Okay. Again, let's not talk about. I like the word advantage better. There's something about privilege that just is. It bleeds into something that gets a little ridiculous.
Advantage, I think, is a harsher thing.
I think it's a realer thing.
I think you guys are talking about the same thing, and you don't want to use it because of the connotation of it that's attached to it.
Okay, but let's get back to the police.
Okay.
They shoot about 1,000 people a year,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Now, in a country of 340 million people, a lot of whom are crazy and a lot of whom are armed, I don't know if that's like a ridiculous number. There are some people the police do have to shoot.
What percentage are white?
3/4.
More white. Wow.
But since blacks are only 14% of the population, that's almost twice the percentage of what it would be.
Right.
Okay.
So there's a problem.
There's a problem. But police also have many more encounters with black people. So you have to figure in all these things.
You also have to figure out the disadvantages that lead to
Correct.
more people of color living in poverty, living in these situations where
Correct.
they have worse schooling. There's all these systematic things that lead to that. Then
points
lead to
points I was making when you were in the crib.
I'm not that young.
Okay. Okay, but I'm just saying I've been all over this territory forever.
Right.
It's not like I'm.
She taught in inner city. She's not like Crenshaw. She's a teacher from Crenshaw.
Yeah, of course. There's a giant legacy of racism and the horrendous, sorry history of America with race.
Yeah.
And that goes into it. But when a policeman is out or woman is out doing their job, that doesn't really figure in. They're just dealing with what's going on right now.
Well, listen, every time I see an officer anywhere, on any set, I thank them for their service. I believe, and I think they're incredibly brave. And I think, the one thing that we're missing in society, and whether it's to police officers or teachers or friends or people who have different political opinions and ideas, is we have lost respect. There is no more respect. You don't have to respect. If you're not like me and you don't think like me, then you're an idiot.
Right. And back to the police for a second. I think even to this day, I think it is true that black folks do have to worry more about being stopped. And those are the stats on who gets shot by the police. Roughed up, in other words, put your hands on people, that kind of stuff.
Right.
That is way more done to people of color than white people.
Okay.
So, yes. So there is still advantage to being white. No doubt.
I'll buy your word. I'll take away privilege and use advantage.
No doubt about it. What I'm always trying to say is, let's just, first of all, get the numbers right. Let's not just pull it out of our ass.
I didn't pull any numbers out.
No. I'm just saying, but people do. They just have a feeling about it. I mean, if you ask the average MSNBC listener,
right,
how many unarmed black people do you think the police kill a year? They'd probably say 50,000 or 10,000.
But do they really have to have the fact? Like you've even said, now that you've given us the numbers, somebody with the knowledge. Well, you're saying if you do the calculus, and where you think what percentage of these people based on the population, it is a problem.
Yes.
Whether I know the number or not, it is a problem.
Yes, racism is still a problem in America. It's just a different problem and a lesser problem than it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly 50 years ago. I mean, we are moving in the right direction. And if you want to pretend that we're living in 1973, as a lot of people do, I can't go there with you. I always say, let's live in the year we're living in.
I don't think two white guys sitting here should celebrate where we are on racism.
And that's a bullshit talking point also, that two white people or three white people can't have a discussion about this, that I am not a sentient being. No, can I understand racism as well as a black person? Of course not. But I'm not without the ability to see what's going on in the world. And by the way, there's two ways you can not understand something in general. One, by being not close enough to it. Yes, I'm not as close to it as a black person. And the other way is by being too close to it. People who are too close to something sometimes are blind to it as well. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg said that she thought the Holocaust was not about race. Right. Now, I defended her.
Right.
Even though she had attacked me like 2 weeks earlier on something else. Because I said, you can't expect to have treated black people the way this country has, decade after decade, century after century, and then not have them have a completely different view on race. It's not one I agree with. I thought that was a ridiculous comment. The Holocaust wasn't about race. As a Jew, you must be somewhat offended by that. But it's like, I get why she's coming from that place, and she has every right to say it, and she should not.
It was just a bad analogy.
It wasn't an analogy. It was a statement. The Holocaust was not about race, but she has the right to feel that way, and I understand why she feels that way. But it would be an example of someone who maybe is too close to it,
right,
and so doesn't have what I think is a correct point of view on it.
And then your network that lost politically incorrect shunned her for 2 weeks.
There's lots of ways to, not have the right answer.